Welcome to Father Time. My name is Greg.
I'm Sam.
I'm Alexander.
And it's an honor for you guys to join us today. Today we're going to have an interesting conversation. It is currently July, finishing up, heading into August really soon. And the question, because of COVID in 2020, is will our kids go back to school? But I'll let Sam explain this a little bit more.
Okay. Well, based, of course, what they're looking at this point right now is they really, really want everybody to go back to school without a doubt. The question is, of course, is it safe? Is it safe, Alex? Is it safe for kids to go back to school, you think?
Oh, Sam,
Right
the
now,
kids go back to school. They just need to go back to school.
right now, no. I mean, to get straight to the point, I don't think it's safe.
Yeah, and I have to agree because in my classes I've been doing as of late, and I do both women and men's classes, I've asked that question to all of them, would you send your kids back to school even though the government says, it's safe, you can do it, what is your feedback? And I'll have to say that probably over 85% of all my clients say no. The very few that say, without no doubt, yes, I need to send them back. That's what they want. They want to be there. They want to go. They miss their friends. They want to graduate. They want to go to prom. And I mean, and having kids. I mean, 2020 is going to go down as one of the craziest years in history. Obviously, how everything had to change. Nobody got to walk the stage, and there were no crowds, and nobody was being crowned as the state champion or district champion. So it changed for a lot of people, not just us, but especially our kids. Where when you're young, it's all about those golden years of high school. If you had them, I guess. So yeah. So how about you, Greg? I mean, would you send your kid? I mean, you two both have children that go to school. I don't. All mine are grown up.
So I have a high schooler and two middle schoolers, and I would send them back to school.
Yeah.
And the issue is sometimes I think we need to look beyond, right? COVID is horrible. No doubt about it. It has frozen our country. It's frozen the world. But when we look at what's being done right now, the amount of testing, and I know this is a hard subject, we look at the mortality rate. We test more people in the U.S. than anywhere else in the world. So we're going to get a better picture of who's sick and who isn't.
Exactly.
But we also have the lowest mortality rate. And I do believe that there's a lot of research being done in regards to treatment and cures and things like that. At some point, I get it, right? But I also want us to get back to something, right? My kids didn't learn hardly anything in virtual training, and they are telling me that very clearly. They need to go back to school.
Yeah, so it's a hard one. I mean, like I said, if I had kids that were school age, and if I was in the position that some of my clients are in, where both work out of the house and if they're both asked to go back, well, who's gonna teach them? They can't just keep them at home. They can't live without one or the other's income. So their hands are kind of tied. And plus, with what they've been saying about how they want to do this school, is they're thinking about having them go back for 2 days or 3 days a week. So then if you eliminate the people who just say, hey, I'm not sending my kids at all, and they do virtual schooling, then it might work to actually go back to school. But again, I've been seeing a lot of people talk on TV about this, the experts, the so-called experts, and then they're saying that, in order to house safely a school based on the distancing, safe distancing and so forth, you would actually have to have 3 complete campuses, so yeah, it's touchy, at the same time, but then again, how kids are. Every kid's going to touch the front door to get into the school. Every kid's going to touch every door to get into the classroom. Every kid's going to touch around the desk that they sit in. Who's going to be walking around, following them, wiping everything down, so that, that they're safe, so, they're thinking about if they send them to school, they stay in one class the whole day, just like in elementary, the middle schools, the high schools will do the same way. That way you have less traffic going in and out of the hallways. They're thinking of everything to try to make this work, and but to see what happens. I mean, cause to me, I think it sounds foolish. You know, they'll close bars and they'll close, you know, places to gather and stuff, but they want to send our kids to school. So to me, that just doesn't make sense. So, anything else you want to add to that, Alex, before we get to our next subject?
So I think when I look at it as I call myself sometimes a self-proclaimed philosopher, um, I look at the big picture and
The
I say,
world according to Alexander.
yes. Or I used to tell my basketball team, life lessons with Coach Alex.
There you go.
So if you look at the big picture, what are we talking about? Education, right? So nowadays, the education is on the internet. You know, there's not. I mean, I learned. I'm halfway done, but I learned how to replace a window regulator through YouTube. I would have never known how to do a window regulator without YouTube, or at least picking up a book. You know what I mean? But I can now go to YouTube. I could do my fix my window, and I could, if I was to do that for a living, I could charge people $100, $200 to do that.
Absolutely.
So that's knowledge that I'm obtaining, and then I'm using to make a living and contribute. Just using that as a small example. But then it comes to the point to where, and I think this is where those people that want people to go back to school are thinking, if we don't continue the education for the lawyers, the doctors, those kinds of professions that you can't get on YouTube, then we're going to fall behind, right? And so they're saying we need to get these people into school so they can start learning, because they're not learning online. So you got the struggle between those that want to continue education for the betterment of the future, and then you got those that don't want to go to school for the betterment of today. Meaning, like, I don't want my child to get sick because that's going to affect us today. And my side, the side that I sit on, is I don't want to send my children to school. And let's be patient. What I mean by being patient is, like, let's wait. It hasn't even been one full year. I mean, when you have, if you look at it on a timeline, like you said, 2020 is going to probably be, there'll probably be like one history chapter on the year 2020. You know what I mean? Because of all the things that are happening.
Yep.
But if you look back, I mean, it's just a little spot in time. And so we say, hey, you know what? Instead of sending them back this year, let's just wait a full year and get a better understanding of what we can do. Because if we're still in this position next school year, then I might be more liable, not liable, but more inclined to say, you know what, you got to go back to school because this is not going away.
Exactly.
It's not going anywhere.
It becomes something that we just have to live with, but get back.
Exactly.
But get back to some type of normalcy. And I agree,
Exactly.
because I think, because think about it. It's only been since March, you know.
Yeah.
The end of the year was only 3 months of people trying to have to, you know, school their children. So I really believe that, you know, we can still do it online. I mean, just like you said, you learn how to change that, you know, that thing by virtual teaching. You know, so it's the same difference. Our kids are constantly on computers; they're constantly on their phones. So what's the difference? But now they're on it doing something they don't want to do. You know?
See, that's the point, Sam. That's the point. I need my kids having interaction with other kids.
Oh yeah,
and realize that there's more to this world than their screen.
Yeah.
And by going to school, they get that experience.
Oh, of course. But I mean, but if the circumstances were different, you know, with everything that's going on and not 10,000 cases every day in Texas.
No.
Yeah.
There's 10,000 mortality rates.
Yeah.
Then I would be evaluating it differently. I don't think it's the number of cases. I think it's the number of the mortality rate. And then it's kind of interesting that right now I'm not seeing the recovery rate, right? I think Bear County took that off. They talk about the people that have been diagnosed, but they're not talking about the ones that have moved through this and have recovered.
I think they put that on there every day, unless they just recently took it off. But I know it's on there all the time.
This morning. So my issue is, I really see now if let's say my grandparents or somebody lived in the house and it's different, then I got to think about their safety because they fall into that high category. My kids are older, and it's when there's an issue with one's health that they need to be concerned, right? I don't have that. My kids are healthy, so if they get sick, I don't want them to get sick. I think they'll be fine because I'm not going to stop school every time a new vaccine or a new flu epidemic hits us, and we've been through that quite a few times. What did we do with H1N1?
I think, Greg, one of the things that you said was you want your kids to have interaction.
Yeah.
So I think if things kind of keep the way they are, what that's going to move to is that's going to move to the responsibility of the parents, meaning like getting the kids together. But I don't think at this point it's going to be at school. I think if they go to school, the main purpose, as you know, we parents always say, is to get an education, to learn something. So what's the difference between online learning and in-school learning is that you have interaction, but you have interaction with the teacher. The teacher is there to see the student when they see that the student doesn't understand what's going on or how they can't solve the problem. Then it's the teacher's job to, teach that to them. And I think that's the biggest difference. I think that's the biggest difference. I mean, that's what everybody's saying, and I think you said it earlier. My kids didn't learn anything online, but they can learn more when you have somebody in front of them, a teacher teaching them. And I think that's where it's going. I think it's going to, if it stays its course, then school is going to be what it's meant to be, is a place of education. And then for us to get our kids to interact, we're going to have outside activities outside of that. Meaning, like, using an example, I get my kids together and we get together, and then you get your kids together, and then Sam gets his kids together, and then we go out, to the pool or something. But that's our choice. We chose to do that. It's not because they were at school together.
Well, I disagree. I think there's more to school than just education. I think there's more to a human being and their personality than just education. We learn how to interact, we learn values, we learn beliefs. I agree, school's not the answer to all that, but it's a piece of this. They make friends, they learn how to have friends. They're faced with their challenges. They're given that experience to make decisions throughout the day. And it's important, especially in this day and age, that kids are given that opportunity to make their decision.
I agree with that, but I think what comes to mind as you're talking is if things keep its course, you're thinking the old way. This would be the new way. So when you have grandkids, you're going to be able to say something like, hey, I remember at school when we used to have recess. You remember we used to have recess? And they're going to be like, Grandpa, what's recess?
They don't have it now.
Say that again?
My kids, I mean, they didn't have it. It was being phased out in their life.
That's true. That's true. As a matter of fact, I don't want to go off on a different subject too much, but I would talk to my kids and I would ask them, how come when I come to pick you up, you don't come to the truck? Like, you talk to your friends for like an extra 15 minutes. and Yeah, and you know, as a parent, that can get you frustrated because you're like they're waiting for them, and they're just there talking to their friends. And but when they explained it to
You
me,
just start showing up 15 minutes late, Alex. That's what you do, man.
and then they take another 15 minutes. You know how that goes.
Take another 15 minutes.
And then they explained to me, and they said they don't let us talk at school. Like we don't get to talk to each other.
Okay, you're in class. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
obviously.
and so after school was their kind of social time.
Hmm.
But
Or
but
lunchtime, or during recess, or PE.
yeah, yeah. I was
So,
just adding that on
yeah.
because Greg was saying that they're kind of phasing out recess. So going back to the point is that I think if things stay its course, the structure, the dynamic of school is going to totally change.
Oh yeah,
Totally change.
no
It's going
doubt.
to be like, remember, it's going to be like a dial phone, touch tone phone back in the day.
They're also thinking about canceling the football season, the basketball season, the soccer season. All this stuff. So, I would say just at least for the first half of the year until after the Christmas break. And if they got a little hold on to things a little bit better, then yeah, I'd say send them back to school. If they can figure out a way to get the numbers down, and because more people. Look at the guy, that 30-year-old kid here in San Antonio. He made worldwide news. The guy that went to the COVID party and got sick. He was 30 years old. Nothing was wrong with him. He caught it. Not even 10 days later, he was dead. Just like that. Boom.
Mhm.
Totally healthy young man. And the last person that got to talk to him was a doctor who was taking care of him. And she said it was really sad because this guy looked me right in the eye and said, "Man, I thought this was a hoax. I thought nothing would happen to me." And next thing you know, he died. He was gone. And matter of fact, I was watching it last night on Nightline. There's COVID parties going all over the place in the United States. So you're playing with fire. And like I tell people all the time, I know you want to do this and do that, but until it hits home, to everybody else, it's just something else. It's nothing it's not going to bother them because it hasn't affected them. So I think once it affects you, I think that's just totally different. I know 3 people in my life personally who died of it, and I know a lot of people who have family or friends who have passed away from it. So, obviously it's real. There's no doubt about that. And I think as parents, it's our choice to make that decision. It's like I tell the people in my class, I'm not here to judge anybody. If you want to send your kids back to school, the thing is that you just have to understand that, uh, there's that possibility. You know, that they can get sick. Will they die from it? No. There's that possibility. You know? Are the numbers real low that they won't? Yeah, they're very, very low. But what if it's your kid? What if your kid's in that 9%? That's the question you have to ask yourself as a parent.
So, but
Yeah,
see,
yeah. And going back to the question,
if we can get in a car and drive somewhere and get a car
Oh
accident,
yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, yeah,
things can
yeah,
take place at some point.
yeah,
I think there is a point where you either making a decision out of fear or out of love,
yeah.
and I really, I struggle with this. It's not an easy thing you come
Oh
to.
God, no, yeah. Because believe me, if I was a teenager in high school right now, I would say, screw it. I'm going to school. 'Cause I played every sport. I loved being in the classroom. I would have been, arguing with my parents. No, no, I'm going to school. Send me to school. Send me to school. And there's a lot of strong-willed kids like that. Who like that interaction. They want to be in school. They want to be walking the hallways. They want to be going to practice. They want to be shooting on Fridays. They want to be, playing under the lights. There's some kids that are extremely driven, that are very socialite types of people that just need to be around people. That's what energizes them. That's what makes them who they are. And then you got the kids that that don't mind being at home. That it's fine with them. So, and then again, of course, you got the circumstances. Do you have to work? Do you not have to work? Can you change jobs? Can you do this? Can you do that? There's just too many variables. So to me, it's all about, it's your decision. You're the parent, so you make the decision. And like I said, if the majority of the people that I talk to aren't going to send their kids to school, then that means that the people that do, that's something they might be able to pull off. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. you know, because at this point they're saying no. So, but anyway, what else do we have, Mr. Mediator Greg? What's next?
Well, hold on. Before we go, one more thing. So the question, going back to your initial question,
You said
do our
your
kids
kid's back.
do our kids go back to school or do they not? If you're asking me, they're not going back to school.
Yeah.
I'll probably reassess it next year, maybe change my mind. But as far as the rest of the year, I wouldn't send the kids back to school.
And that's my stance.
All right. Well, that's it from Father Time. We look forward to talking to you guys soon out there in the virtual world. Until then, this is Greg,
Sam?
Sam,
Alexander.
and we will talk to you shortly. Take care.
Peace out.